I'd like to introduce our presenters today. We have Robert Mann, who is the CEO of Vital Software. And Robert has been on the front line of designing and developing and deploying senior living software for over 15 years. Robert is a pioneer in web-based senior living technology. He enjoys creating solutions that make a difference in the lives of the staff and ultimately enrich the lives of the seniors that they support. Also like to welcome Anthony Crowfoot, VP of Creative Strategies. And Anthony has been working closely with long-term care pharmacies and senior communities for the past 8 years. He focuses on helping pharmacies and senior living providers optimize and error-proof the shared business process of providing medication management and care delivery for the residents they serve. So Anthony, without further ado, I will turn the presentation over to you.
All right, thank you, Debbie. Hello, everyone. Thank you for allowing Robert and I to join you this afternoon. Thank you for the introduction, Debbie. As you heard, both Robert and I have been a part of this industry for a number of years, and we, both of our companies have found each other working together to try to solve this problem of lack of interoperability. And so today the topic is really focused around how interoperability can optimize a community's resident care and business performance. So let's start with what exactly interoperability is. Really, in essence, it's really when two or more systems work seamlessly together to be able to exchange, share, pass information without requiring any extra effort, any additional manual steps, and overall improve, a process, make it more efficient. So when you have interoperability, you eliminate those extra steps by becoming more efficient. You can certainly increase your revenue, improve your resident care. What we find is when there's systems in place that don't communicate with one another, things get missed. And that's really what has brought our two companies in working together. Now, Robert Mann and his Vital Software is really an innovator in really the resident assessment and care planning component for communities. They do a great job in doing that, and we have been innovators in the resident medication and resident care management space. But in essence, both of us shared a similar problem, and that is we've really remained islands in our related spaces. Even though both of our products can take a paper process and automate it, before we started working together, neither of our products would work together. Yet there is a direct connection between the process a community would go through in the care assessment for a resident, in the service plan creation for a resident, to the point where that actual care is performed. So, and that was where we did, but there was always this disconnect. And so that's where our two companies sought out to try to fix this problem. Now, there are a number of other drivers around that, beyond our customers screaming for, a more efficient way. Thanks for getting rid of this paper, Robert and Anthony, but is there a better way? Well, that was a driver, but also just trends that we're starting to see in the industry. The first I'd like to go over is just the fact that we're getting saturated with residents, and there's going to be an increased demand. As you can see, over the next almost 15 years, there's going to be 20% of the population that's going to be 65 years of age or older. And a high volume of those residents, 70% as a fact, are going to need some type of a long-term care service. So it's an exciting time to be in this industry. It can also be a scary time. What are we going to do with all these residents? How are we going to care for all these residents? Because these residents are coming to us now requiring a lot more complex services. So over the last 8 years, I've really noticed a trend just in our business around the point of care and seeing the acuity levels increase. I look at assisted living today as almost the new skilled nursing, and I'm sure a lot of you on the phone might look at that as the same way. Some of the conditions that these residents have, the number of medications they might be receiving, it's only increasing. And so there's so many ways that communities are seeking to try to help handle that, because most of these communities that we work with, for the longest time have been more focused on just heads and beds and making sure that I have enough residents to occupy my communities. But now I'm having to learn how to become a healthcare company as well. And so we're starting to see a real convergence take place between operators focused on revenue and also now focused on really trying to meet this increased demand in healthcare. As you can see in this next slide, that there's a lot more conditions existing among these residents. Their acuity levels are skyrocketing, and so some communities might think, well, maybe I'll throw more nurses at that problem, and thinking that, for most part, assisted living deals predominantly with non-licensed staff at the point of care. So maybe I'll just add some additional staff, add some nursing to help handle these complex conditions. Or maybe I'll add technology. Or maybe I'll do both. But is that really enough? Now, this slide here is, it was pretty powerful when we got to see just how much over the last 9 years the average length of stay has been reduced. And as you can see, it's almost 40%. And so you look at this and you might ask yourself, so what's contributing to this decrease in the length of stay for a resident? Well, of our opinion, based on what we continue to hear and see, that residents don't stick around in a facility that's unable to meet their clinical needs. And so, same issues that I've already gone over. These residents coming to these facilities that may not be well equipped with these processes that they have in place, whether it be paper, whether it be technologies that just don't talk to one another and require staff to do a lot of unnecessary work, all can affect the total outcome of that resident's health care. And then the last thing that's caused us to really focus on this topic is that the government's really pushing the envelope. You're going to see through healthcare reform that the pace is quickening in the need for technologies to not only exist, but to also be able to integrate with one another across the entire healthcare continuum. So the health information exchange, that's been a buzzword for a lot of years, and there's a lot of markets that are trying to put a health information exchange. I know we're here based in Louisville, Kentucky, and we've had a system that has been trying to integrate these care providers, and it's not there yet, but it's creeping there. And we feel that you're going to start to see in assisted living ramifications by not having technologies interoperable, much like skilled nursing did, within the last 5 years, where reimbursement levels or referral rates were cut if they weren't implementing meaningful use electronic health record technology. So just to kind of summate why I've talked about these trends, this is really what has caused our two companies to really seek out this path of trying to solve this problem of communities that are using interoperable processes, because it really does have an effect on the bottom line, it has an effect on the residents, and so forth. So I'm going to turn it over to Robert, who's now going to talk more about the problem of not having proper interoperability.
Anthony, thank you so much. Again, my name is Robert Mann. I'm the CEO of Vital Software. Andrea and Deborah, I want to thank you as well for giving us this platform, and to all of the attendees that are joining today or listening to this as a recording. As Anthony mentioned, this is a great time, an exciting time in our industry. It's also a little bit of a time of uncertainty in terms of how we're going to scale and address some of the resident needs, staffing challenges, efficiencies, how are we going to stay on top of the acuity trends, and so forth. So I'm really excited to visit with you all today, and just would encourage you at the conclusion of the next few slides to post any questions or along the way here. So the problem that we face with the lack of interoperability is that when we have systems or processes, so I'm talking about primarily the assessment, care planning, kind of task assignment process, compliance kind of fits in there as well. And the process of going from that effort to getting that information in front of the caregivers down to the point of care in either a technological capacity, in the case of what we're doing with Anthony's team, or in the case of maybe paper that you might be using today or other processes, Excel, etc. And the idea here is to close the loop between those processes and talk a little bit about what problems are presented, as you likely know all too well, when you face disconnected systems. If you're on this call and your systems are all connected up and you have a closed loop and you're giving feedback back to the assessors, then this probably means something different to you today. And there would be points that resonate, but we're talking largely to an audience that is challenged. 75% of our industry is challenged by systems that don't talk from the planning stage of the process to the actual care delivery stage. All right, next slide, please. So as you can see from this slide, I really think this slide, there's going to be two of these types of slides. This is going to be kind of the cause and then the effect, or the problem and the solution. So this one here shows at the stage of a resident's need, say perhaps coming into the community or at the point where we're doing an evaluation or an assessment on a resident at that kind of second point there. So you can see this trend line here, or this graphic, represents the resident's kind of aging in place or stay in your community. So at this point, we're assessing the resident's needs, determining the plan of care. Maybe we're evaluating or determining that they're primarily independent. They have minimal needs for ADLs and direct care services, and then maybe they're managing their own medications or diabetic control, etc. But what's happening on the front line at the point of care does not reflect what either that revenue model looks like, or the care plan or compliance pieces of that look like. So the idea here is to take this concept of interoperability between platforms, systems, processes, and marry those up so that the front line is sharing information real time to the planners and the nursing that's evaluating the needs, so that as independence is diminished over time or resident needs increase, that we're giving that feedback as efficiently and as effectively as possible back to the plan. We'll talk more about the solution here in just a few minutes. Next slide, please. All right, so we're going to go through kind of a summary of what happens in this scenario. So for operators that are experiencing these challenges, the first kind of key indicator of some of the things that happen are planned care tasks and service levels don't match the service that's actually being delivered at the point of care. You've got an assessment over here on the one hand that reflects the billing level and the services and the compliance of the care plans. That doesn't necessarily reflect what's happening by the caregivers. And that problem, you're not alone if you have that challenge, certainly not alone. And through response through Argentum and other organizations, that number looks like it affects about 75% of communities and operators in our industry. It's remarkable to me after 20 years that loop has not been closed, but like I said, it's an exciting time to work towards that. Next effect of that is the inability to quickly recognize and document and adapt to changes in a resident's needs. So this is where the rubber meets the road. When the staffing is adversely affected or staff are overburdened by higher levels of acuity that are not reflected through our assessment and our service planning and revenue models, then that puts a burden on the business. It puts a burden on the staff. And right now, at the point we are in the industry, that could not be a more severe risk to an operator in terms of needing to be able to staff and know where you need to be real time, as opposed to playing catch up at the point of reassessment 90 days, 60 days down the road when we finally reevaluate and determine that mom needs more help or Ingrid needs more help than the plan is calling for. The next one is staffing levels that I mentioned. The staffing levels don't align, billing doesn't align, revenue doesn't align. There's kind of these cascading problems, if you will, and I'm going to talk about those here in just a minute. Communication and engagement with residents. I mean, really, to me, this is where kind of the operation side meets the kind of the connecting point with the family. Hey, what's going on with mom? What's really happening? why does the service plan say X, but you're doing Y, and now you're asking me to pay more? Why are you asking me to pay more? Because the plan says this. And this problem, if you can relate to that, then gets addressed here in the solution side of this interoperability plan. So next slide, please. All right, so just kind of looking at those cascading effects. What are the ripple effects across the organization or across your enterprise when systems are disconnected? And I'm not talking, and I'm not pointing to any one particular person on this call or organization necessarily. I'm more stating that 3/4 of the industry has this ripple effect. And so what happens is more staff time is spent on care tasks and not in the care plan. And basically that means that we're overcompensating at the point of care because the feedback loop is closed, meaning we're not getting the caregiver's input as efficiently as we possibly could back to the assessors and the nursing staff. The lack of efficiency, more time spent tracking and documenting care. When systems are disconnected, they don't interoperate. You may even be logging care and service delivery at point of care today. But if that information is stuck in an island somewhere where that feedback is taking an inordinate amount of time, or it's delayed in getting back to the planning and the reevaluation stage, it's difficult to justify rate increases. It's difficult to staff appropriately. It's difficult to send out a bill or drive revenue that reflects what you're really doing. And the net effect of that is it's higher job stress. It's higher job stress on the directors of communities and the administrators. It's additional burden and stress on the caregivers because we're doing more, but there's this kind of subtle pressure around what the revenue is that's tied to that, and labor. Hey, we need to be doing more with less, and acuity is rising, as Anthony pointed out. The next bullet here, and I'm going to move kind of fast through this. I want to make sure we have time for questions. And the needed care is not delivered, resulting in suboptimal health. This is a risk, certainly. I certainly hope this is being addressed some other way, but if the resident's care is ultimately suffering as a result of not being able to use a planning solution, an interconnected solution to identify and respond, then it could result in suboptimal care, and that certainly is where the resident ultimately suffers. So, I don't necessarily ascribe to the premise that technology can solve all problems, but I certainly feel like in our industry, especially as acuity goes up and as staffing becomes more challenging for operators, that having more efficient systems is key to that. Next item here, disconnect between the service rates for planned care and actual care. Hey family, we're doing this, but the service plan says this. Being able to create a justification of why, that is the problem that often exists when systems are not interoperating. And length of stay decreases. I didn't staff proactively, perhaps, or the staff becomes burdened. Maybe I have turnover, other factors that trail as a result of these challenges, can result in residents needing to be discharged and move on to other care settings if we're not proactively out in front of these things. And then the family becomes concerned. They want to know that mom and dad are getting the care that is really reflected by the caregivers and what is needed at point of care. All right, so at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to have a question. So we're going to throw it out there and get some feedback from you. So Andrea, do you want to throw up that poll there? Fantastic.
Yeah, so we're going to ask you for just to answer this quick poll for us. What challenges are you experiencing due to lack of integration of clinical systems? Is it a lack of efficiency? Is it a higher job stress? Is it uncollected revenue, or maybe decreased length of stay, or providing consistent quality care? So let's give you a few moments to go ahead and take the poll, because we'd love to hear what kind of issues you're having. So right now, in the lead is lack of efficiency, followed very closely by higher job stress and providing consistent quality of care. So let's just give a few more minutes for folks to vote. Oh, and the numbers are coming in. All right, just a few more seconds. All right, I am going to go ahead and close the poll and share the results. So in terms of the challenges you're experiencing, the number one was providing consistent quality of care, which doesn't surprise me. And then second, which led almost to the end, was lack of efficiency, and followed by higher job stress and uncollected revenue, all issues that we face. So great, thank you all for participating.
Yeah, that's it's really great. I appreciate everybody taking a moment to give that feedback. The two kind of leading responses there, they were all pretty close, but were related to the quality of the care and consistency of care, and then followed behind by efficiency. And both of those speak to really two key aspects of our business operations, and that is the quality of the product and services we're delivering to the seniors that have entrusted us, and then the revenue that efficiency, staffing, that is tied closely to that. And those two, I see it every day. For 20 years, I've been working diligently to help solve those challenges, and that's why this interoperability solution is so exciting, and really looking forward to kind of unpacking this for you here in the next few slides. So I feel like at the end of this conversation, if you have any needs around these, please reach out to Anthony or I. We would love to visit with you on kind of what the roadmap is for solutions here. All right, so here's that slide again. And you can see interoperability brings together, and this is a timing factor, the assessing and care delivery feedback cycles. So the loop, the closed loop that I've talked about, try not to be too techy about kind of the side of that plays together. But effectively what we're talking about is the assessment and the care plan feeding tasks that drive to the front line that get feedback in as efficiently as possible from the caregivers so that we can tell and alert and notify staff real time that there is a need for addressing a plan of care, so that within your 90 or 120-day reevaluation period, that if there's a significant change in condition, we're getting on top of that as quickly as we can and addressing that through our business model, however we treat or address changes in condition. So this is the graphic, this is the goal, if you will. So next slide. All right, so at this juncture, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the benefits. What happens to your business as you achieve kind of this Zen-like interoperability state? And so one of the first kind of effects or results from doing so would be that the planned care tasks, what you intend to do for the residents, is aligned with the services, the service plan, and that affects billing and compliance. And so, that's just an expectation. There should be really no reason why that doesn't happen real time as efficiently as possible through the interconnection of systems. Next one is the ability to quickly recognize changes where they occur. So this is that change in condition. Hey, boom, mom, was able to self-ambulate from the bed to the bathroom at the point she admitted up till about a week ago. But we've been helping every morning. She's been giving us a call and asking for assistance. So, that's not reflected in the service plan yet, but at some point, getting that information based upon documentation and or some annotation at point of care, charting, if you want to call it that, at point of care is critical in getting that service plan to align. And then staffing. This to me is probably one of the biggest motivating factors, and it's really a passion that I have, is based largely on personal experience, truthfully. So my family, my mother-in-law and my father both went through assisted living and skilled nursing care. And one of the things that was most significant to our experience was when the caregivers were consistently providing care, meaning that we knew that on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays on a particular shift, we were going to be seeing Lisa. And when Lisa was there, we knew kind of what to expect. But we also knew that maybe on another day we wanted to show up on Sundays, et cetera, and provide some feedback to the staff. And so, having that continuity of care is really important, and then having the staffing levels in your business to reflect what is needed is important. And then the revenue. The revenue follows. The revenue follows these practices. And so rather than making the goal revenue-centered, I think it's important that we solve these other challenges, and interoperability does, and then the income will follow. And then communication engagement with residents and families. So here we are. We've elevated the level of responsiveness by having the frontline talk to the planning systems, and now we can communicate real time with the family. And I'll just share one quick story with you. We're kind of getting tight on time, but I want to share just one quick thought on this and kind of a plan, if you will, or a vision. I believe information related to the experience that families have. They come in on a Sunday and they see that dad is feeling a little down, and dad doesn't want to get out of bed every morning, and because there's something that has changed. Not communicating it clearly to the staff, but we kind of learn what that is. And what the family is able to do through proper communication is know where dad's at. What's happening? Why isn't dad getting out of bed, or that dad isn't? And how we can step in and provide feedback to the communities and say, you know what, as long as I've known my dad, usually this means X, and X is probably, some kind of depression or some kind of issue that he's facing, and we can use that and provide that feedback to the staff. So a family connection or interface to this information in time, I think, is critical, whether it be inside your community or through some kind of technology that we develop that gives families insight. All right, next slide. Leading to these positive ripple effects, and we talked about the negative ripple effects when interconnection does not exist. This is truly where it's exciting. We bring these benefits through the systems when they talk to each other, and it's a problem for which there is a solution, and that's what's so exciting in our industry today from a technology perspective is you don't suffer no more. There is the ability for systems to talk together, and it doesn't necessarily mean you have to deal with a whole bunch of multiple vendors and things like that. They talk, and it provides real-time care analysis, assessment, and reassessment information through this closed loop with different point-of-care solutions that play nicely together, if you will. And then enhanced quality of care is improved, so the quality of the service reflects the care being provided and the plan. And then staff is aligned. We've talked about that several times. Job stress, I believe, really this happens. This is a residual of having better systems and processes and communicating systems as that staff stress goes down, whether it be the executive director's stress because they don't have to worry about whether information from the front line is making it back to the nursing staff. And then acute and timely billing for all services. Again, the revenue follows as a result of these systems, and length of stay improves. When we know what is coming, we can plan better. Information is key. So improved resident and family communications. Talked about that several times. All right. I think I better just kind of fly through. I mentioned kind of what next steps are. Identifying your business, what's working, what's not. Are there gaps, deficiencies that you feel like could be addressed? I don't think you'd be on this call today necessarily if you didn't feel like there was some opportunity, so mention that. And then employ experts to help. Anthony and I are here to help in any way we can. Certainly reach out to us and then implement these solutions. It's scary sometimes. It can be a challenge, but the benefit of change is greater in most cases than the pain of staying where we're at. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Andrea for some questions.
So it's Debbie. I decided to jump in because I know a lot of our members are really passionate about understanding that they need to have these systems that coordinate to improve all the areas that you discussed. But there's that kind of decision that they have to make about the integrated suites that have been out there for a long time that don't you have to kind of take everything that they have within that suite, their kind of closed system, versus what they're looking for oftentimes, which is how do we create integration of choice. So people often want to choose their own, whether it's CRM and EHR and billing and all of the different components. So can you kind of talk through what you've seen in terms of within your suite? How is it different in terms of using an already integrated suite of solutions that's maybe a closed environment but comprehensive versus really taking the time to build a best of breed integration?
Yeah, it's an excellent question, and without disparaging any of my counterparts in the industry, I think more just to kind of state that there are technologies in the senior living industry, particularly targeting the assisted living industry, that make pretty strong claims around interoperability. And what the origins of many of those systems, no disrespect to our counterparts in skilled nursing, but many of those systems originated from a model for which we are not staffed. And so it creates or places a heavy burden on staff. I use the analogy oftentimes, it's like flying a single engine Cessna versus flying an F-15. The switches, they're both airplanes. They both fly. The complexity of flying an F-15 versus flying a Cessna 172 are considerably different, and the skills required and the burden on the people doing those areas are different. And I think that's similar to what we're experiencing in interoperability. And the other part of this that's clear, at least to me, is interconnected systems in our industry are often a result of patchwork technologies anyway, meaning they're the companies that have a broad range of modules and technology are most commonly through acquisition. A software company will acquire a CRM solution or acquire an assessment solution or a care management or a mobile technology, and they have to make those talk. What we're doing that's different is with Anthony's team is creating what's called a marketplace, a certified platform by which technologies talk to each other. And as an operator, what this means is you go pick your CRM off the shelf and your care management solution and your census solution and your billing and your EMR and your point of care solution. You have the confidence of knowing that we have, as technologists, work together to certify and credential these technologies to work together. So long answer to a short question, but hopefully that covered the answer.
Anthony, do you have anything else, or?
Yeah. Thanks. I mean, we look at it's extremely difficult enough just trying to focus on your own strength. We've spent over 10 years trying to make AccuFlow, one of the best EMRs we can try to make. We would never in a million years imagine trying to do something like become a CRM company or create a billing component. It would just spread our knowledge base and skill set so thin in these other areas. And so we would rather not add watered down components. We'd rather just work with companies like Robert's that are willing to play well in the sandbox so that a community can benefit from this best of breed approach. And there are options out there like our companies that do work together and don't step over each other. And so that's what I encourage you all to seek out if you guys are really questioning which approach do I take, because there are companies like us that exist that are willing to integrate with one another to provide you all a seamless solution.
And I might add that Deborah's company, Senior Living Smart, exists largely for that reason. She and her organization have taken the time to kind of validate players in the market, whether not just technology players, but companies that play well with each other and that kind of have risen to the top of the kind of the innovation level in our industry. So I would encourage everyone to kind of navigate through Senior Living Smart as well for some of those partners.
Great. Thanks, Robert. So one other question came up as you were talking. When dealing with multiple integrated systems and we're talking about the best of breed, who do you call when you need help?
Yeah, so the model is very similar. If anybody has experience with QuickBooks or PeopleSoft for HR, there's many other technologies. Almost all progressive modern technologies have a marketplace. So when you go to a marketplace, if you were a customer of ours, you would literally have a place to go to select other interoperating technologies, including AccuFlow, to connect to our product. So we become the front line. And so I think it's important that operators understand that they have one neck to wring, so to speak, and they have oftentimes one bill is another benefit in some of the partner relationships. That's the bottom line. And so I think this certification and credentialing concept of making sure that systems talk well together is the key step towards having the assurance and confidence that you don't have to be split amongst different systems. Now, having said that, there are certainly areas of expertise that, in our case here, AccuFlow has around EMR, implementation, support, training, project management, etc., and that it differs from our experience around sales automation and CRM and census management, assessment, Acuity, etc., and the things that we do. So the subject matter expertise is strong amongst our organizations, but that's a benefit in my perspective. It's not a weakness, and so we have help desk systems that communicate to each other. You submit a support tech through our system for something related to EMR. We send it on through our help desk system to our partners. So that from the backside, that's kind of how that experience happens.
Terrific. I think that's all our time for today. Anthony and Robert, thank you so much for your information. For the attendees, once you leave today's webinar, you'll receive a survey on the presentation, and we'd appreciate if you complete that and provide your feedback. And you'll also receive a follow-up email within 20 to 48 hours with a link to view a recording of today's webinar. Our next webinar, Mystery Shopping as a Coaching Tool, will be on Thursday, October 13th at 1 o'clock. On behalf of Senior Living Smart and our presenters, thank you for joining us today and have a great rest of your day.